My name is Olivia Hart. 10 years ago, on a night so cold the rain felt like shards of glass, I stood on my parents' porch with a trash bag of clothes and $12 in my pocket. I knocked until my knuckles were raw, my voice a desperate plea against the storm. Please, just one more night. But the door never opened. The only sounds were the whisper of the television and the fading footsteps of the family I thought I knew. A decade later, I watched from the gate of my $850,000 Seattle home as those same people begged me for shelter. Family never gives up on each other, they said. I simply smiled. Because sometimes, the most powerful answer is silence. I grew up in a Denver suburb where reputation was the only currency that mattered. My father, Mark, was a civil engineer who valued honor above affection. My mother, Janet, curated a perfect life for the neighbors, her smile a polished accessory. My brother, Logan, was the golden child, his football trophies the centerpiece of our home. I was the afterthought, the dreamer with paint-stained hands. Their love was a transaction. You can paint the whole world, Olivia, my mother would say, but how will that buy you a house? The words festered inside me, a constant reminder that I was a failed project in their eyes. Favoritism isn't always a grand gesture, it's a death by 1,000 tiny cuts. When Logan broke a window, it was a boyish prank. When I spilled a glass of water, it was a character flaw. The night everything ended, I was in my room, sketching under the warm glow of a lamp. The calm shattered with my mother's scream. $500 is missing from my purse. My door burst open. You took it, didn't you? For your useless paints. I froze, brush in hand. I didn't take anything. But the verdict was already in. My father's face was carved from stone. Tell the truth, Olivia. Don't make this worse. I looked to Logan, standing in the hallway, but he turned away. His silence was the final, brutal blow. Get out, my father said, his voice cold and final. Learn what honesty means. I packed a trash bag, my hands trembling. My mother stood by the door, a sentinel of disdain. This house has no room for liars. The rain soaked me to the bone in seconds. I knocked again, my voice breaking. Mom, please. Just tonight. I saw a shadow move behind the curtain. Then, nothing. The lock clicked into place with a sound that echoed louder than thunder. At 16, I learned how silence can sound like applause when your own family watches you walk away. I found refuge in a 24-hour cafe, shivering in a corner booth. The owner, a widow named Mrs. Collins with kind, tired eyes, saw the wreck I was. She didn't ask questions. She offered a deal. If you want to work, I have dishes to wash. If you're hiding, you need to leave. I washed dishes until my hands were raw, sleeping on a thin mattress in the storage room. Mrs. Collins became my anchor. Never let anyone make you believe you're not worthy, she told me. I clung to her words like a prayer. I earned my GED at night, studied interior design, and saved every penny. 2 years later, I bought a one-way ticket to Seattle with a worn suitcase and a dream big enough to fill the emptiness. The years that followed were built on grit and coffee. I started at the bottom at a design firm, but my sketches caught a boss's eye. You have a different vision, she said. I learned that design wasn't just about beauty, it was about healing spaces, and in turn, healing myself. I started my own company, Reframe Studio, from a rented garage. My philosophy was simple: every space has a soul, if someone believes it's worth saving. Word spread. I became known as the designer who could breathe life into forgotten houses. At 25, I bought a derelict lakeside villa. For 8 months, I restored every cracked tile and warped floorboard. The day I finished, I stood in the sun-drenched living room, the keys heavy in my hand. I had built a home that no one could ever throw me out of. Success, I soon learned, has a way of echoing into the past you've left behind. An article featuring me in a business magazine went viral. The comment that stopped me cold was from a user named Janet H. Olivia Hart? Is that our Olivia? Then, the call came. Sweetheart, my mother's voice was saccharine. We're so proud of you. The irony was a physical ache. The same voice that once hissed liar now dripped with false warmth. A week later, another call. Logan's in trouble. They're losing their house. Your place is big enough, isn't it? I laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. Do you remember that rainy night I begged for just one night? You told me to learn to live in the real world. I took a breath, my voice steady. Well, I did. The manipulation began in earnest. They took to social media, painting me as the ungrateful, heartless daughter who had forgotten her family. Relatives I hadn't heard from in a decade sent scathing messages. I had survived with nothing but my will. I would not be destroyed by their lies. One night, I composed an email. I sent it to every relative, every family friend. I didn't write with anger, but with a calm, devastating truth. I described the rainy night, the false accusation, the closed door. I detailed the dishwashing, the GED, the struggle to build Reframe Studio from nothing. At the end, I attached a screenshot an old friend of Logan's had sent me. A message from a decade ago, "Don't worry, man. Just blame her. Mom and Dad will believe me anyway." I ended the email with, "Sometimes silence is how we survive." But today, I choose to speak, not for revenge, but for closure. I hit send at 2 a.m. The sound it made was the sound of a chain breaking. The fallout was swift and brutal. The truth spread like wildfire. Logan's wife, Emily, left him, messaging me, "Thank you. Now I see everything." Logan's life, built on a foundation of lies, crumbled. He showed up at my studio, drunk and raging. "You destroyed this family," he shouted, his eyes wild. "No," I said, my voice quiet but clear in the hushed lobby. "I just pulled the curtain off a dark room. You're the one who chose to stay inside." They came on a gray afternoon, my parents, standing at my gate like ghosts. Their apologies were rehearsed, full of regret for sleepless nights and lost reputations. "I was wrong," my mother whispered, her eyes downcast. "I was so afraid of what the neighbors would think." My father, his pride finally broken, said, "I didn't know the difference between discipline and cruelty." I listened until they were finished. I felt a profound clarity, like the still surface of the lake after a storm. "Thank you for the apology," I said. "I believe you mean it. But this house," I gestured to the home I built, "it no longer has room for lies or emotional debt. Every room is occupied by peace and self-respect, and they don't like to be disturbed." My mother's face crumpled. "Can't we even have a meal? One conversation?" I looked at her, the memory of the rain a cool touch on my skin. "On that night, I asked for just one night, too. You didn't open the door. Today, I open the door for myself, with boundaries. I forgive you. But I will not live again in a room built on conditions." I watched them walk away, two figures dissolving into the Seattle mist. The wound wasn't gone, but it was finally clean, bandaged properly, and no longer bleeding. The next morning, I booked a flight to Denver. I went straight to the cafe. Mrs. Collins was there, wiping the counter, her hair a little grayer. She looked up, and her eyes lit up as if someone had switched on a light. "Olivia." I didn't need to say anything. I just hugged her. We sat by the window where I once slept beside a trash bag. I told her everything. When I finished, I took her hand. "Mrs. Collins, I have a house with plenty of rooms, but I only want to fill it with people who are truly family. Will you be my godmother?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I've thought of you as my daughter since the first night you slept in the storage room." A few weeks later, she moved into the lakeside house. I set up a room for her where the morning sun touched her bed. We hung a small sign by the porch, "Home brewed daily." One evening, as we watched the rain over the lake, she asked softly, "What if they really do change?" I smiled. "Then when they plant peace on their side of the river, I'll send a bouquet across. Not to return, but to celebrate." She nodded, and the rich scent of her coffee filled the room, a promise kept. My story doesn't end with a perfect family reunion under one roof. It ends with the family I chose. A godmother who gave a shivering girl a chance. A garden we plant together every spring. A house where the door opens from love, not fear. I was the girl on the porch, learning the brutal language of silence. Now, I am the woman who speaks through kind, unyielding boundaries. And to you, the one listening to my story, if you are ever forced to choose between forgiveness and self-respect, know this: they are not mutually exclusive. True forgiveness cannot exist without the self-respect to set the terms. Your worth is not negotiable. Your peace is not a bargaining chip. Build a home, in your heart or with four walls, where love isn't conditional. Find your people. They may not share your blood, but they will speak the language of your soul. And remember, not everyone who leaves your life is a loss. Sometimes, their absence is the sacred space you needed to find your way back to yourself.